good in your body, all without dieting, spending hours in the gym, or counting a single macro. Today, we're going to talk about the surprising reasons why you can't resist bread or other things like bread. Have you ever found yourself reaching for food not out of hunger, but because you were stressed, lonely, or just feeling off, or you just felt like you couldn't stop eating it because you were addicted to it, or you just had to have it, you didn't know why? Maybe it's pizza after a tough day, or cake late at night, or something else. I think you know what you are binging on or emotionally eating. Or maybe you just keep eating slice after slice of toast. You know you're not hungry, at least physically, maybe emotionally, but you can't stop. If this sounds familiar, here is what is most important for you to know. It is not about willpower. Absolutely not. So today we're going to look at the hidden truths behind these cravings. And we're going to dig into why we turn to food when we're not hungry, looking at the deep psychological meanings behind our food choices. And most importantly, I am going to tell you how to break free from this behavior without focusing on food. No counting calories, no keeping track, none of those things. No good food, bad food, none of those things. Those actually lead to the problem. Often they are definitely not the solution. By understanding the emotional roots of your eating habits, you can begin to heal. You can begin to create a healthier relationship with food and, most importantly, with yourself. In fact, by creating a healthier relationship with yourself, you create a healthier relationship with food. So get comfortable and get ready to uncover the emotional truths behind your problematic relationship with food. Let's start by talking about something pretty basic. So I talked about emotional hunger and physical hunger. And I think it's important every once in a while on the show, I go back to this basic, which is differentiating between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Physical hunger is very straightforward. It's physical. You feel it in your body. It is your body's way of signaling that it needs fuel. So you might feel your stomach growl. You might experience a little lightheadedness or even hangry, right? A little irritated when you are hungry. But emotional hunger is not felt in our body. That is something completely different. Emotional hunger is located more in our minds. And it strikes often suddenly. It usually comes with a craving for a specific food, often something indulgent or on your bad foods list, or something that you find comforting. And this type of hunger is not about fueling your body. It's about soothing your emotions. And it is your mind's way of saying, I need something. But what it's really asking for, what you really need, is not food. So emotional hunger sounds like, that really sounds good. Ooh, I have a craving for that. That's emotional hunger. And it often arises from unresolved feelings or feelings that we try to keep out of our awareness or unmet needs and wants. So let's look at the example of Melinda. She had what she called a thing. She had a thing for white foods. That's how she put it. She could not stop eating bread and butter and pasta with butter. And on the surface, it might seem like she was just craving carbs, but it was actually much deeper than that. For Melinda, those particular foods were tied to such warm memories of family gatherings, breakfast with her families, dinner with her families, time when she felt really, really connected and loved because she lived far away from her family. She didn't see them very often. Some of them were no longer with us, shall we say. And when she ate those foods, she wasn't just satisfying a craving, right? It wasn't really about bread and butter or pasta and butter. She was trying to fill the emotional void left by her loneliness and disconnection with her family. And then there's Greg. He also was into pasta. He would make himself a giant plate of spaghetti and eat the whole thing. And he thought he had no willpower. He thought it was all about willpower. What's wrong with him? Why couldn't he have more control? All the things. But it turned out whenever he felt something was lacking in his life, he ate spaghetti. And he didn't actually put that together until we started working together. For Greg, eating until he was stuffed was a way of filling that emptiness he felt inside. And it's no coincidence his mom was Italian, as in from Italy, as in pasta, as in spaghetti, as in all of that. So again, you can see the connection between certain foods and certain memories or needs. The foods we crave when we're emotionally hungry are never random. They are often very symbolic. They are deeply tied to our experiences, our memories, our emotions, our needs, our wants, to us. So think about it. What about you? As I'm talking about this, what foods do you turn to when you're feeling sad or anxious or lonely? And what might those foods represent in your life? And if you can't make the connection between, oh, well, I eat those sorts of things when I'm feeling this way, then think about wondering what you're feeling if you're eating those foods. I'm going to get to a little more about that in a little bit. Why not get to it now? So often when we eat foods that take up space within us, that reflects an unconscious wish to fill a void of some kind, some emptiness within us. Because think about it, when we are lonely, it feels like emptiness. When we have voids in our life, when there's something missing, we experience a feeling of emptiness. And emptiness can be symbolically filled with food, especially food that takes up a lot of space. So filling foods like bread, like pasta, like cake, like burgers, all of these, pizza, all of these kind of heavy, big foods take up space within us, and it can make us feel as if we are filling that void. We're not feeling the emptiness of our lives. And that is the psychology behind filling foods, right? Filling foods, again, they take up space physically within us. They make us feel full and satisfied. And take a moment, think about the word fulfilled or satisfied. We also talk about relationships that way. We say relationships are satisfying, relationships are fulfilling. And we talk about food the same way. It was a really satisfying meal, feel really full. So this is not, if you can't stop eating bread or cake or any of those foods that I have mentioned, it is not about the food that you are craving. It's about trying to fill some inner emptiness with something physical. So our minds, if our minds had a separate thought, our minds would think, our unconscious mind would say, I'm feeling empty. So maybe filling up with food would really fill that hole. And then I won't feel this empty, lonely thing anymore, which is true. It is a concrete solution to an abstract problem, and it doesn't truly address the underlying issue, but it is true, because then what are you thinking about? You're not thinking about, oh, I feel lonely. I feel unfulfilled. There's something missing in my life. I wish I had more of something. I'm not, I wish I had a partner, or I wish I had a different partner, or I wish I had a more fulfilling job or career, or wish I had a child, or wish I had a better relationship with someone. No, you're not thinking any of those things. You're thinking, I can't believe I ate that. Oh my gosh, I have no willpower. I have no control. What is wrong with me? And there you go. Now you've changed empty feeling into yes, you've filled the void, but now you're attacking yourself and you're thinking about other things. So it has a dual purpose. No amount of pasta or cake can fill the emotional voids that we are experiencing when we're lonely, when we're empty. And that is why emotional eating becomes such a cycle. We eat to feel full, but then, of course, the emptiness returns, and that leads us to eat more. And it is a cycle that is just exhausting and endless, especially when you factor in that not only are you filling up symbolically, but you're also being mean to yourself. You know, if you're likely saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I ate that." Right? And maybe you're even saying to yourself, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you fix this? What's your problem?" to yourself. And then what do you feel? You feel terrible. You feel awful. And then you might turn to food just to escape your own mean voice. So it's really a double whammy. And it can feel like there's no way out. Someone today said, "Oh, I feel like I just don't know how to fix this." Well, you're not broken. You're not broken and you don't need to be fixed. You just need to understand yourself better and find new solutions to the true problem, which is not food. It's whatever food is trying to resolve. Emotional eating and binge eating is not, it's not the problem. It's the solution to the problem. The problem is whatever's going on with you that is so uncomfortable, so hard to think about, so hard to feel, so hard to get in touch with. And often it's so hard that we don't even consciously become aware that we're being triggered or that we're feeling a certain way. But, also these filling foods often carry cultural significance, which adds a whole other layer to why we choose them when we're feeling empty, low, whatever. Different cultures have their own comfort foods. And these are foods that are really tied to family, to tradition, to a sense of belonging. So in Italy, as with Greg, comfort might come from a big, hearty plate of pasta. Although, honestly, in Italy, it's not even the main course. If you spent time in Italy, you know that pasta is not the main course. It's just the first or maybe second course. All right, I digress. So in India, maybe, curry and rice or something like that. In the US, yes, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, all the things, right? So these foods they're not just about taste, right? They are symbols. They are symbols of comfort, care, and connection. And they remind us of family gatherings, celebrations, times when we felt safe, when we felt loved, when we felt like we belonged. And when we reach for those foods, we're often trying to reconnect with those feelings. And even if you never had that family, where you felt like, "Oh, I belong. This is great. We're bonding over mac and cheese," which a lot of people have not. Guess what? You probably saw that. You probably saw that on TV or something. What happens around the holidays? We see commercials, we see movies. Families are all gathered around the table eating. There's so much, so much in our culture that connects family gatherings and food with a sense of belonging and connection. So understanding all of this can be a powerful tool in addressing emotional eating and binge eating. When you recognize that your cravings are about more than food, you are not triggered by food. You are triggered by some thought or situation, a feeling that you may or may not be aware of that is causing you to turn to food for comfort, for distraction, to fill a void, to celebrate, to go numb, all the things. And if you also think, well, maybe this is about some wish for connection, some wish for belonging, some wish for family, we get a new perspective over what's going on with food. The point is to stay curious, not critical. When you are curious, you find answers. Your mind wants to find answers. When you're critical, you just feel bad. And then when you feel bad, you cannot criticize yourself and simultaneously lift yourself up. When you feel bad, then you might just use food for comfort. And it is a vicious, vicious cycle. And by the way, when I say be curious, I have heard this presented as curiosity. Why did I eat that? Right? That is not curiosity. That is an attack disguised as curiosity. Why did I eat that is really not a nice thing to say to yourself because of the tone. But you can use a different tone. I'm all about the tone, right? The right tone is like a verbal hug. The right tone can make us feel completely different. So you could say, why did I eat that? Which is not a question. It is an attack. Or you could say, why did I eat that? What's going on with me? Now, when you ask it the second way, your mind is much more likely to come up with an answer. Our minds want to come up with the answer. So when you truly ask it as a question, why did I eat that? What's going on with me? Your mind's going to go, oh, it's because I don't want to feel this, or I don't want to think about that, or I just really needed some comfort, or whatever it is. And then you know what the true root problem is and how to deal with it. Maybe you need to find new ways of comforting yourself. Maybe you need to uh, find new friends, more friends, or do something that is fulfilling. Maybe you need to think about a change in jobs, or a change in relationship status, or something. Maybe you need to think about your life and how you want it to be better, which is these are scary thoughts. But ultimately, they are liberating, they are freeing, because when you get to the root of what is bothering you, then you find new ways of responding to yourself, dealing with things. You don't need food as a way of distracting yourself. So curious, not critical. And why don't you let's pause for a moment, just reflect on this. Think about the comfort foods from your upbringing. What memories or feelings do they evoke for you? How might those associations be influencing you today? Something to think about. Food for thought. By acknowledging the cultural roots of your comfort foods, or your go-to foods, or whatever the foods are that you are kind of stuffing yourself with when they're filling, what is it you're trying to push down? What is it you're trying to stuff down? By recognizing that, you can start to untangle things. You can start to respond to yourself differently. And that is, of course, only the first step. To truly break free, to get that liberation, you need to do more than just have insight into your why. Someone today, by the way, if you're not following my YouTube channel, the Binge Eating Cure on YouTube, check it out. Someone left a comment today on my YouTube, one of my YouTube videos, and they said, well, I know why I'm doing this. How's that supposed to help me? And I said, well, it's not. It's only the first step. You have to identify what's going on before you create change. You cannot fight an invisible army. You just get beaten up, right? There's an army around you and they're just beating you up. You don't know where it's coming from. You're just getting battered. But when you make that army visible, you see what you're fighting. You see what you're fighting, and now you can fight back. So just recognizing your why, just recognizing, oh, that's why I'm lonely, or I'm sad, or I'm missing this, or I'm whatever it is. That's just the part where you make the army visible. That's all. But in order to be free and get liberation, you have to, now you see what you're fighting, and then you've got to fight back. So seeing the problem is certainly not going to be the solution. Seeing the problem is the first step to creating the solution. Okay, So I have actually a practical 4-step process that can help you address this. So the first step is stop and think, stop and think. This sounds so simple, but it's really hard when you're just on that mission and you're like, I can't get to the kitchen fast enough, or I can't get to the drive-through fast enough. I can't get that food fast enough. It's pretty hard to stop and think. It's really hard, but you can do it. Just take a moment, take a deep breath, just one breath, a moment of awareness, and tell yourself, I'm going to take a moment. I'm just going to give myself, 30 seconds. And if it's too much, I'm going to keep going to the kitchen, because that 30 seconds or even 10 seconds, or however long you could go, that is something you can then expand on. That 30 seconds can become a minute, can become 5 minutes, can become 10 minutes, can become an hour, can become a day, can become a lifetime. But let's start with the 30 seconds to stop and think. Stop and think. Take a deep breath. Really take a breath. Let it out. That is a moment of reflection and awareness that creates a space between your impulse and your action. It's okay to have the impulse. Of course, you're going to have the impulse. But make space between the impulse and the action. Make 10 seconds of space. Again, as I said before, that space can become longer and longer and longer. And that allows you to be more conscious and to really think about, wait, why am I going to the kitchen? What's going on with me? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I trying to resolve? What I'm trying to get away from? What is it I can't be with? What's so hard right now? What's going on with me? And then identify what that is. So first you just want to stop. Then you want to say, okay, what is it? What am I feeling right now? And instead of focusing on food, turn your attention inward. Ask yourself, am I stressed? Am I lonely? Am I bored? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I depressed? Am I anxious? Am I unfulfilled? What's going on with me? Identifying that emotion is the key to expressing it. You got to know what you're feeling before you can express it. Remember, emotions are signals. They are signals to ourselves. They are telling us something important about our inner state. And by tuning into our emotions, we can start to understand what we truly need. And by the way, if you are familiar with my food mood formula, right? Food mood formula is a way of understanding what you are feeling, because sometimes we go so fast to food, we don't even know we're feeling anything. Most people say, I'm not feeling anything. It's just about the food. I'm just triggered by food. No, you are not. You're triggered by something that may be out of your awareness. But what do you do if it's out of your awareness? Well, you use my food mood formula. That's what you do. Here's the formula. If you find yourself going for something that is smooth and creamy, that is a sign you need comfort. If you are going for something crunchy, chips, pretzels, all the stuff, that is a sign that you are upset, angry, frustrated, irritated, annoyed, enraged, something like that. If it's candy, maybe you need more sweetness in your life. And if it is filling, back to filling foods, it is a sign that there is some hole in your life, some hole in your soul that you need to fill. You need to be really curious and bravely wonder what that is. The next step is to start expressing your emotions. This is the thing that everybody tells you in culture, tells you not to do. You're not supposed to have feelings in our culture, by the way. You're supposed to only be happy. That's it. That's the only feeling that's allowed. You could be happy. And if you're a guy, you can definitely not be sad or vulnerable. And if you're a woman, oh, you cannot be mad. No, 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 no. You could be sad. That's okay. Yeah. But boys don't cry and women don't get pissed. Well, I got news for you. We all have emotions. Emotions are just reactions to situations, and they need our attention, not our condemnation. And our culture says, don't have those feelings. Feelings are just what connect us to ourselves and each other. That's it. They are not character flaws. It should not be so scary. But what our culture does is go right to toxic positivity, which is, it's not so bad. Others have it worse. What am I complaining about? Right? All these ways of trying to get us to not feel our feelings. But if we don't feel our feelings, we will try to stuff them down. So acknowledge what it is. And for those of you who have written to me and said, yeah, your food mood formula sounds good, but I'll just have everything in my kitchen. Okay, yeah. But what did you choose to have first? Because if you could have everything in your kitchen, what did you start with? Use whatever it is that you went for first, as that is the root that you need to look at. So when you can identify your feelings, oh, I need comfort, I'm sad, or I'm anxious. If you are lonely or bored or empty, or if you are angry, or if you need sweetness because you're also sad, start to express it. Even if you just name the feeling, I'm feeling lonely right now. That's okay. I can feel lonely. I will survive this feeling. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling anxious right now. Sometimes it helps to just say it out loud, which may sound really weird and may feel really weird, but it is a first very important step to that expression. Name the feeling, start expressing it. And then you can add in, I'm mad because of this, and it means that. I'm really mad because I got passed over that promotion, didn't get it, and it means that I'm never going to get ahead in my career, so I'm super bummed right now. Okay? I'm really lonely because I don't have like really close friends, got a lot of people around me, but it's not so satisfying. All right, so I'm going to leave it there because we are already at break. And when we come back, I am going to tell you the rest of the formula and what else you can do to break free from this compulsion to have filling foods or any foods and reclaim your life. See you in 2 minutes.
All clear, back in 2.
Welcome back to the Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. Have questions for Dr. Nina? Join her on the show at 866-472-5792. That's 866-472-5792. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. Today we are talking about how to deal with those cravings for bread and other filling foods. And I'm giving you a strategy on what to do when that craving strikes. And we talked about stopping and stop, think, stop, drop, roll. No, stop, think. Question. Identify what's going on. Express those feelings. And then the last step is to reassure yourself. So first it's going to be like, wait a minute, what's going on with me? Why am I wanting to eat that and more of that and even more of that? What's going on with me? Oh, I am feeling lonely. I am feeling angry, whatever it is. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling empty. I feel a loss. I feel a hole within. And then expressing that. I feel it because I don't have enough people in my life that feel satisfying. I don't feel connected. I don't feel that true, amazing human connection that I'm always seeing on with other people or on shows like Friends. Why can't I be in that show and have those friends, right? It makes me really sad. It makes me worried for the future, and I feel really sad for myself. You know, of course. And then you say, of course I do. So reassuring is, again, you want to avoid toxic positivity. No, oh, it could be worse. At least I have some friends. No. That's dismissing yourself. The reassure is you want to validate and acknowledge and reassure yourself. Yes, of course I feel lonely. I have people in my life, or I don't have people in my life, but it's not the kind of relationships that really uh, feed my soul, shall we say? And because of it, I feel so disconnected, and it's really hard. And that's painful. And, it's easier to focus, by the way, it's easier to focus on, oh my God, I can't believe I ate all that bread. I can't believe I ate all that cake or pasta or pizza or whatever, what's wrong with me, than it is to say, oh, there's something fundamentally missing in my life. It's hard. So that last part is reassure, which is to really validate and acknowledge, of course I feel this way. It's really hard not to have satisfying, fulfilling relationships. That's difficult. It's painful. It hurts. How else could I feel? Of course I feel this way. And I'm going to maybe think about what steps that I can take to improve my relationships or meet new people. But I'm not going to turn on myself. I'm not going to turn to food. I'm going to recognize, now that I see what the problem is, let me think about what the solution could be. Because eating is not a solution. I'm not going to get more friendships or more fulfilling friendships, or I'm not going to meet a partner, or I'm not going to have a baby, or whatever it is that's missing in your life. I'm not going to get a better job by eating more cake. So I'm going to really think about, how can I take care of myself in this moment? And this really involves self-compassion too. Self-compassion, someone recently said, isn't that kind of like letting yourself off the hook? What hook are you on? You're just having a feeling and a thought. You're not on, you haven't done anything wrong. Self-compassion is recognizing your humanity and treating yourself with the same kindness that you would treat anyone you care about or love. So let's imagine, let's do like a real life, well, not a real life because it's fake, a pretend life scenario. Imagine you've had a really tough day at work, really tough, one of those days, we've all had them, right? And you find yourself in front of the open fridge, eyeing that leftover cake. So first, stop and think. Take that deep breath. Create the conditions for awareness. Create that space for awareness. And then two, identify what is going on. Ask yourself, hey, what am I feeling right now? What do I really need right now? Then you realize maybe, oh, you're discouraged about a project that didn't go well. You're feeling bad about your career. I've had a lot of people talk to me about their careers lately. That's why I have like all my examples have to do with career. So common. All right. Oh, okay. So I'm feeling, not only discouraged about the project at work, but now I'm feeling bad in my career. I'm thinking about the future, and my future is not looking pretty. And then express your emotions. So instead of reaching for that cake, you say, I am feeling really discouraged right now. Today was tough. I am discouraged. I feel sad. I don't feel like this was a satisfying day. I don't feel like I'm being acknowledged at work. And by the way, one thing about work, why does work come up so often? Just as an aside, work comes up very often because our workplaces become stand-ins for our original family dynamics. So at work, we can see our bosses as a parent, and we're not conscious of this, by the way. This is totally unconscious, but like we're making the invisible army visible, right? Because when you make the invisible army visible, you can see what you're fighting. You can fight back. So parents, bosses feel like parents, and coworkers feel like siblings. So if you're like either trying to get that boss's approval, or you imagine your boss is super critical and you had a critical and judgmental parent, now you know why. Now your boss may or may not be critical, but it is just intensified when you're experiencing not only the the situation in the present, but with a whole layer of the past. Or you are constantly competing with your coworkers, and you know that you have this you have this intense competitive drive. You want to beat them out and get that promotion or whatever it is, get that acknowledgement. Think back to your childhood. Did you have siblings with whom you had that same competitive dynamic? Just as an aside. So, okay. So you're going to take the breath. You're going to ask yourself what's going on. Oh, it's work stuff. It's really bothering me. I'm feeling really discouraged. It's really tough. And then you're going to reassure yourself. Yeah, of course I feel discouraged. It's very natural to feel discouraged, especially when things don't go well at work. This project was challenging, but it doesn't define my worth or abilities. I can learn from this experience. I can do better next time. And by the way, this does not say anything about my future. This is just about this project. And yeah, I'm super bummed that it didn't go better, but I'm not going to turn that on myself. So now you've identified what's really bothering you. You've expressed it and you've responded to yourself. Instead of eating cake and eating more cake and more and more and more, and then everything else in the kitchen, and now you're not thinking about the job stuff, you're thinking, what's wrong with me? What's my problem? Oh my gosh. So by going through this process, and it takes a lot of practice makes progress. But by going through this process, you start identifying the real issues, the real problems, the true roots to why you are turning to food in the first place. And in this example, those roots are your discouraged feelings, your worries about your career, about your future. Instead of avoiding that by turning to food and thinking about that, and then maybe feeling physically sick when really you feel emotionally sick or unwell. So this approach not only helps you manage emotional eating and binge eating, it also builds emotional resilience over time. Because the more that you can identify your feelings, express them, respond to yourself, the less scary those feelings get. You feel more resilient. It's not so anxiety producing to even have those feelings. You know that whatever it is that comes up, you can be there for yourself and you can help yourself through. Again, this takes practice. You are not going to perfect this overnight. And again, self-compassion is needed, right? You've got to approach yourself with self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff, who is an expert in self-compassion, she describes self-compassion this way. She says it's being kind to yourself when you face difficult emotions or challenges. Sounds so simple, right? Being kind to yourself when you're facing something hard. So that means recognizing that emotional eating, binge eating, is a coping strategy. By the way, it is the most prevalent eating disorder. More people struggle with this diagnosable and clinically treatable disorder, coping strategy, than have bulimia and anorexia combined. Way, way, way more. It is very prevalent. It is a way of coping. It is not about willpower. It is not about control. Self-compassion means being gentle with yourself when you do emotionally eat. Instead of criticizing yourself, be curious. Try to understand, why did this happen? What triggered you? And what can you learn from it? When I work with people, when I work with my clients, I always say, let's reframe success, because people will invariably come in and say, I was so good. I wanted the thing and I didn't have it. Okay, that's willpower. And I tell them, I'd much rather that you had the thing and then realized, oh, I know why I wanted it. I know why I ate it. Right? Because that way we at least know what's going on. We know what the trigger is. And then I help them find the trigger, of course. Anyway, so reframe, what is success? It is not using willpower and white knuckling it so that you do not, eat something. That's just willpower, which will inevitably fail. Success is saying, oh, I know why I want to eat it, or I know why I ate that. I realize what was going on with me. I realize what was eating at me. I get it. That is that all important first step of identifying. It's not the last step. It's just the first step. And also think about, what would you say to a friend in that situation? If your friend had a tough day at work, would you be like, oh, I got you. Here's some cake. Let's order pizza. All good. No, you would talk to your friend and you would be kind and compassionate with them. Be so with yourself as well. And by the way, while we're talking about friends, what if your friend did that to you? You went to the friend and you said, oh, I had such a tough day at work. And they said, oh, I got cake in the fridge. Would you be like, oh, great. No, that would not do it, because you don't really want cake. You want to be heard. You want to be supported. You want to be understood, soothed, given some reassurance. So be that friend to yourself. And also, and this is Kristen Neff also says, self-compassion means viewing your efforts to change as part of the journey, which is really important. It's not that when you've changed that you celebrate yourself. It's when you are in the process of trying to create something new, a new response to yourself. That's when you need the most self-compassion. It's like running a marathon. You run a marathon, you finish the marathon, it's like, woohoo, I ran the marathon, celebrate. But you don't need encouragement then. That's when you get to celebrate. You need encouragement as you're training for that marathon. So as you are training for a marathon, it's, I got this. I ran that mile. I can run 2 miles. Oh, I ran 10 miles. Maybe I can run 11. I got this. I can do this. If you say you want to run a marathon and you only ran 10 miles, or you only ran 2 miles, you're never going to get to 26 miles. How likely is it that you're going to get to 26 miles? Very unlikely, because you're discouraging yourself. You need to encourage yourself with self-compassion. And it is about making progress one step at a time, literally, and in the marathon example, figuratively. So change takes time. And every time you do something a little bit different, you're learning something new. And by approaching this journey of changing your relationship with yourself, and therefore changing your relationship with food, when you approach that with self-compassion, when you're encouraging yourself, you create support for yourself. You create a supportive environment for yourself. And when we live in a supportive environment, we grow, we thrive, we can move forward. When we're attacking ourselves and beating ourselves up and saying, oh my God, how could you have done that? You're never going to change. You're disgusting. All the things people say to themselves. What's wrong with you? You need to fix this. All of that. Yeah, you're just going to make yourself feel stuck. So self-compassion and a self-compassionate attitude is so important. Okay, let's recap everything we talked about. So emotional eating, when it comes to filling foods like bread, cake, pizza, pasta, it is not about a lack of willpower. No, no, no. It is an attempt to fill an emotional void. Sometimes it is an attempt to calm down our bodies, right? But either way, that is, when we're anxious and you just feel so, it's like you're a vibrating raw nerve and you just can't calm down, like you've had 10 cups of coffee because you're so anxious. Sometimes eating a bunch of carbs is a way of calming yourself down. But so that is another possibility. But more likely, you are filling some kind of an emotional void. Also, the foods that we choose can be deeply symbolic. They can be tied to our cultural and personal experiences. So think about that too. What is it that you're really needing? What is it? Are you feeling a void? Are you also trying to connect with a feeling of connection from earlier in your life? And change creates the 4-step change. I can't speak. My dog woke me up. Zane the Dane, who I love dearly, woke me up at 2:30 in the morning. Why? Because he wanted me to pet him. So I did for a long time and never went back to sleep. So I am running on fumes, people. But you know what? He is so cute and he's worth it. And you know what? I always talk about, hey, let people know what you need. He did. He let me know what he needed. Unfortunately, it was in the middle of the night, but all right. Let me try that again. Breaking this cycle of emotional eating and binge eating involves this 4-step process. Stop and think, identify what's going on, express your feelings, and reassure yourself. And remember, self-compassion is so important. It's about being kind to yourself as you work toward a healthier relationship with yourself, your emotions, and therefore with food. So as you can see, as always, when I talk here on this show, it is not what you are eating that is the problem. It's what's eating at you. And by addressing the root causes of emotional eating and binge eating, you can create lasting change. Lasting change. That's why I believe in liberation and not recovery. Recovery means every day I'm going to be eating mindfully. Every day I'm going to think about what I'm going to have and not have and make good choices. No to recovery. Yes to liberation, which is, oh, you know what? I wake up. I don't think about what I'm eating. I think about my day, not my diet. And then as I go through the day, I make naturally healthy choices. Sometimes I have some treats or whatever, although we're not calling them treats because we're into food neutrality. Sometimes I have cake and sometimes I have bread and I don't feel bad about it. And I can be at a weight that I feel good at. That's liberation. So in the week ahead, I encourage you to pay attention to what's going on with you in food. When you reach for it, for some reason other than breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, ask yourself, am I physically hungry or am I trying to fill an emotional need? What is going on with me? What's going on with me? Curious, not critical. Okay. And as always, practice makes progress. So thank you. That is the end of our show. Thank you for joining me here on the Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. If you want a deeper dive into this topic, be sure to get your copy of my best-selling book, The Binge Cure: 7 Steps to Outsmart Emotional Eating. It's available on Amazon in all formats, including Audible, if you want me to read it to you. And don't forget the accompanying journal, the Binge Cure Journal, which takes the principles of the original book and gives you a whole huge workbook full of, how many pages is it? Nearly 200 pages full of, 200 pages of worksheets to help you on your journey to liberation, also on Amazon. So have a great week. I will see you next week. Bye for now.
All clear. Great show.
Thanks, Jordan.
No problem.
Have a great week.
You too.